ladies and gentlemen. It is 5:30 on the dot. No, I think we'll have like half a minute left. We'll just give it half a minute for everybody to log in. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and on behalf of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, I would like to welcome you to tonight's What Do Scientists Do? A look inside the Ivory Tower public lecture. My name is Tanya Reinhardt, and I'm the Science Center Coordinator at the University of KwaZulu-Natal Science and Technology Education Center. Before we start, just some housekeeping rules, and I'm pretty sure that you know, all of you probably know what they are. So please make sure that you muted your microphone. So this is not a webinar. This is a web meeting. And please, to save bandwidth, please switch off your video as well. As to questions, you can either ask Dr. Clulow live at the end of the lecture, or you can post your question in the chat. And it's now a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, Dr. Alistair Clulow. Alistair Clulow is a senior lecturer and agrometeorologist at UKZN. He worked for the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, for 8 years before joining UKZN to complete his PhD in hydrology. And guess what? He never left. Dr. Clulow thrives on the diverse nature of agrometeorology, with links to the disciplines of hydrology, soil sciences, horticulture, forestry, crop science, and grassland science. His current C2 NRF rating is an indication of his research starting to have international recognition. He lectures undergraduate students and thoroughly enjoys supervising his numerous MSc and PhD students. He is involved in a number of projects with a focus on crop water use studies. His research interests are many, and they include real-time weather and environmental monitoring systems and data collection, surface radiation and energy balance measurement, water vapor and carbon dioxide flux measurement, including soil respiration, set flow measurement, catchment water balance monitoring and land use change, lightning detection, and adverse weather and warning systems. And tonight, he is entertaining us with hopefully an electrically charged talk with the title Lightning, It's Electrifying, and look at early warning lightning detection systems in KZN. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and like I did, and I hope you can see it, get your plasma ball out of the cupboard and be electrified by Dr. Alistair. Alistair, I'm going to hand over to you, please.
Thanks so much, Tanya. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Can you see the presentation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alistair.
Okay, just give me a moment, please. Right. Yeah, Tanya, thanks very much for that, that introduction. I felt quite good about myself after that. But I can assure you I'm just a normal guy who has to try and teach one of his children Afrikaans after this so that he can hopefully pass his exam tomorrow. But this is you know, really great opportunity for me to be able to share you know, some of the work we've been doing, and the title is Lightning, It's Electrifying. And I sort of, you know, I had some doubts since I presented that title. You know, I thought, you know, there's so many options. You know, I've got here lightning, the shocking truth, or lightning, or brainstorming lightning, with storming being emphasized, or current affairs, or staying grounded, or lightning, it holds potential. But I'm actually happy with it's electrifying. So let's proceed. I've got a few slides to share to illustrate some of the work that we've been doing and where it's sort of come from. So agrometeorology. I didn't really plan to end up here. It's something that came about when opportunity presented itself, and it's really it's been the people that I met along the way, and the mentors that I've had that have got me to where I am, as well as students that have made me look good. And yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that what I'm presenting is really it's a team effort, and I'm part of a group of wonderful people that have allowed us to do this kind of work. But when I go to a social function and people ask me what I do, and I say I'm in agrometeorology, they generally look blankly at me, and then I realize I have to explain what it is. And when you have a difficult word that you're trying to explain, you normally break it down. And this one's quite simple. You split it there. Agro, meaning aggressive. When you aggro, you're very cross and you're mad. And meteorology is weather, obviously. And you add the two together, and you've got agrometeorology. And maybe that aggressive cross weather is the lightning coming into it. But I soon realized that the agro part is actually agriculture. Okay, and I've got a little picture there of cows in the field and a tractor and some daisies. But the official definition we give second year students has got nothing to do with being agro. But in answering the question, what is agrometeorology? We tell them that it's understanding physical processes in the atmosphere, the vegetation cover, and the soil. And Prof. Savage always talks about this as a continuum, basically emphasizing that they are all linked, and that we can't see them as individual things. And why are we interested in agrometeorology? So as to improve agricultural efficiency. So we need to produce more food, and we need to use fewer resources and lower costs. And we also need to understand or determine the environmental factors that limit the environment. So what causes crops not to grow well, for example? But it's very important that as our population grows, there are more people on the planet, that we do not exclude the microclimate of humans and animals. Okay, so it includes the atmosphere, vegetation, the soil, humans, animals. And when you look at a picture of the globe like that, I feel like everything there is agrometeorology. We've got the land masses there with soil. We're looking through an atmosphere to see the globe. The oceans impact our weather. The ice caps are melting, and we're interested in climate change. They're clouds. So it's such a diverse field. And sometimes I've felt as though I'm not focused enough, on just one thing and become a specialist on one thing. But it's really added diversity and spice, and it just makes it so interesting to be involved in a discipline that's so diverse. And I think one of the things that brings it together really beautifully is something Prof. Savage initially developed, and he started it running in about 2010. So we've got over a decade of data from the system. And it's essentially an environmental monitoring system measuring various things. It was located mainly at the agriculture campus, using radio communications to a computer in the lab. And he did an amazing job of getting it all up and running. And here we can see one of the existing screens, which, for example, shows interesting things like temperatures, air temperatures, surface temperatures, which will be the soil surface or the grass surface temperature. We've got things like solar radiance. We've got information about wind speed and direction, and leaf wetness, rainfall over here, reference evaporation over here. So it's been marvelous for agrometeorology, because we use this to teach our undergrads. We use it to gather data for postgrads. And as we've developed it, we've expanded the number of sites that we have. We've changed the way in which we communicate with stations. We use cell phone modems now, we use Wi-Fi, we use LAN connections at times, but it's just a wonderful way of bringing all the measurements together. And it's virtually, we call it real time, near real time, because it's updated every 5 minutes. So the oldest any data will be here is 5 minutes old, and then an update comes. And the real beauty of it is that it fully supports data sharing, in that there are tabs here where you can download the data and have access to it, which is what works particularly well for undergrad projects and postgrad studies. And we've got a weather station at Ukulinga, where we measure a lot more than just weather. We measure soil moisture, we measure soil temperatures, and various things. We've got another station at Midmar, where we monitor the wind speed and we send some warnings if there's high wind speeds. And as the system developed, we realized that because we're measuring things like rainfall, if we have very intense rainfall, for example, and soil moisture increases to the point at which water is not infiltrating anymore, those two conditions are potentially the kind of conditions that you're likely to get flooding. And then there were other things. There was wind speed can be dangerous, so we can provide warnings on wind speed. Heat index was one that Prof. Savage worked on, and essentially almost anything we can measure, we can provide email and SMS warnings on that particular variable. And it seemed natural that the progression would be to lightning, because there are sensors that measure lightning, and we've got the system that can collect data and issue warnings. So it was, it seemed appropriate that lightning would enter the work that we were doing. So that brings us to the topic of lightning, and it's electrifying. I mean, this is a fantastic picture. I absolutely just love it. It was taken at 4,000 frames per second. And this is one of the frames that captured this lightning strike down to this tree. It looks like on some remote farm. And you can see what are called stepped leaders over here. I'll explain a bit more about those. You can see streamers that rise up from high objects on the ground. And it's when those leaders and the streamers connect and make attachment that you get your release of charge, and what we see as a lightning strike. But I think what makes it electrifying is not just that there's electricity involved. It captures our attention. It's exciting. It has amazing power. And the temperature of a flash is 5 or 6 times hotter than the temperature of the surface of the sun, at about 30,000 degrees Celsius. So yeah, that's electrifying. And the speed at which it happens. These streamers, we don't even see them. They move at speeds of 320 kilometers an hour, and the actual stroke of electricity travels at 320 million kilometers per hour. So it catches my attention. And then it's also flipping scary, lightning. And I think we all must have a memory. Anyone who's lived in KwaZulu-Natal over a summer period must have some memory of there being a bit of lightning around. You know, there's a storm, there's rain, and then suddenly there's a lightning strike close to where you are, and you jump, and all those around you jump and get a fright, and then suddenly you feel that fear. So it's scary, just like this picture. And this is actually a picture of Trevor Hill from geography early in the morning before he put his makeup on one day. He was absolutely happy with me sharing this picture of him. So I thought it would be theamiss to present on lightning and just not speak a little bit about the formation, because there's a lot of information on the internet and it's quite hard to find accurate information on lightning. This is a nice picture that shows, it's a little video clip. It's showing the sun here heating the surface of the earth. It causes air to rise, and eventually that air reaches a condensing temperature, and clouds start to develop, and then eventually this cumulonimbus cloud in an anvil shape, and then you see the rain and the lightning. And what is key here is that in meteorology we call it unstable conditions, and it's those conditions where the surface is being heated and the air is heated from the surface and it starts to rise, and that's a trigger of motion. But what's critical, because this also happens in the desert, is that air is unstable and it rises. What's critical is that there is moisture involved. And you'll notice that in all the areas where there is a high incidence of lightning, there is moisture available. And when I say moisture, it's the moisture in the form of water vapor. And it's the most amazing thing that I only learned when I started teaching second year agrometeorology, is that water vapor has a lot of energy stored in it. For it to move from a liquid to a vapor, it takes up energy. And that's why when you sweat and the sweat evaporates, you cool down, because energy is being taken up for that phase change. And that energy is then stored in the water vapor, and it is released when the water vapor returns to a liquid again. And that's what happens inside these clouds. There's condensation, there's a release of energy, and that just drives these clouds to keep forming and growing. And this is where it really happens. I've got my pointer here. It happens in the middle of this tall cumulonimbus cloud shaped like an anvil, which is an old something that a blacksmith used to use. And what happens in the central area is that you've got these violent currents of air and all the particles of ice and what's called graupel, which is almost like hail. You've got these currents, vicious, violent currents, and all the particles are colliding. Ice is colliding with graupel. And what happens is it results in these ice crystals and the graupel taking on a charge. And the ice crystals generally take on a positive charge and the graupel a negative charge. And ice crystals are generally lighter, graupel is generally heavier. So you get this differentiation in charge within the cloud. And this little video shows it beautifully, how the positive, the top of the cloud becomes positively charged, and the central area becomes negatively charged, and then there's a thin positive layer commonly at the bottom of the cloud, but it's reasonably weak. And the ground, the surface of the ground below the negative charge in the cloud takes on the opposite charge that has developed in the cloud. So it takes on a positive charge down here on the surface. And then what's quite interesting is that where the surface is exposed to a positive charge from the cloud, it develops a negative charge. So where the charges become large enough, we get intra-cloud flashes. And then we get from the negative part of the cloud to the ground, we get negative cloud to ground flashes. And where the cloud is positive, we get positive cloud to ground flashes. Now, this is a slow motion video, okay, very slow motion. This process from start to finish takes place in less than a second, fraction of a second. And what it's showing here is that a leader develops. This is a stepped leader that is developing here. And it's as a result of very high charges in the cloud, between the cloud and the ground. They break down the insulating capacity of the air, because air is actually an insulator. But if the charges, the difference in charges between the cloud and the ground become strong enough, they break down the insulating capacity of the air, and it ionizes a pathway through the air, and it's looking for a way to neutralize the negative charge in the ground. And these negative ions flow down this leader in different directions. They can see about 50 meters ahead, and eventually, in seeking a way to neutralize the negative charge, they meet what are called streamers, which develop from high points on the ground generally. And it's really interesting to know why these streamers develop. Because you've got a very strong negative charge in your cloud, they repel negative charges because you've got a very strong negative charge in the cloud, they repel any negative charges in the atmosphere just above the ground. And they force the negative charges into tall objects and then into the ground and then away. So you get these, if all the negative charges are taken out, you get positive charges. And these streamers develop, and they're pathways of ionization upwards. They're normally about 50 meters long. And when they make contact with a leader, that is when all the negative charge in your leader dissipates suddenly. And that is it's called your return stroke. And that is what you see. This process of leader formation, you don't even see, it's too quick. Okay. And once this pathway is there, you can see there's a return stroke and another return stroke, and sometimes 3 or 4 return strokes. And you can see, because you've already got a conductive pathway there, that if it didn't fully dissipate all the charge, the cloud is able to reuse that conductive pathway. So next time you see lightning, try and see whether there are a number of return strokes. And together, those are called a flash, a lightning flash. But a flash is often made up of a number of return strokes. Okay, and something that's really, really fun to do when you can see lightning is that you can work out how far away the lightning is from you by observing when you see the flash, because light travels very quickly. When you see the flash, that's pretty much when it happens. It's almost real time. Sound travels much slower though. And if you count the seconds between the flash and when you hear the sound, you divide those seconds by 3, because it takes 3 seconds for sound to travel a kilometer. So you divide the time it takes for the thunder to get to you by 3, and you will have the number of kilometers away the lightning is. So if there's a flash and then you count 12 seconds and you hear the thunder, you know that the lightning was 12 divided by 3 is 4 kilometers away. And it's also interesting to know why you get that rumble of thunder. And it's because the sound of the thunder is caused by the air around the return stroke expanding rapidly and then contracting again rapidly. And that produces that fast expansion and contraction causes the sound of the thunder. But obviously that sound doesn't just come from one place. It comes from the path of the flash, which varies in distance away from you. And you hear the sound all the way along that flash. And that's why it'll often sound like a rumble. So it's the sound from different parts of the flash reaching you. Okay, and as I said, in agrometeorology, we like to measure things, and we have a number of different types of sensors that can measure or detect lightning, and most of them are through the very low frequency or the low frequency, and then some in very high frequency range. So this y-axis shows the lightning power spectrum, indicating that most of the power that is released from a lightning strike in terms of thunder is in the frequency of about 10 kilohertz. Okay, there's a lot less power in the very high frequency, but we do have sensors that use those. The real challenge in detecting lightning is that you want to detect something that is unique to the lightning. If you just try and detect all frequencies, you're going to have false alarms the whole time. So that's the real challenge, is to find the frequency that differentiates lightning from all other things. You know, it's just noises that are in our environment. You don't want to detect those as lightning strikes. These are what some of the sensors look like. You can go to Takealot and you can buy yourself a little handheld sensor. The accuracy may not be great, but they have their place. If you are mobile, if you're on a field trip, if you are working out in the field and you need to be aware of lightning, they're a useful device to have with you. They've never really, they're never really going to be proper warning systems, because there's a person involved, and wherever people are involved, there isn't a certainty that the warning will reach everyone, because people get sick or drop the device or go to the toilet or get a phone call, and with warning systems, you have to have them working every second of the day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So sensors like this strike guard are used to detect flashes, and this sensor will actually detect radiant flashes in the infrared. So when the actual flash of lightning emits infrared, and it's got a detector that will pick that up, and then it'll also detect in the very low frequency bands. And this is one of the type of sensors that we use, and it's got a fiber optic cable that it uses to transmit signals to the data logger, which is very clever, because fiber optic doesn't transmit surges. So one of the problems we have with equipment, lightning equipment, is that it gets struck by lightning and damaged. It's very clever that it's got this fiber optic cable to it that keeps it safe from electrical surges. This is an electric field meter, and it measures lightning, but in a very different way. And these two actually complement each other very well, because this one over here measures the buildup of charge in the ground. So it faces the ground from a height of about 2 meters, and it detects the buildup of charge in the ground. So that positive charge that's developing in the ground will be detected by the sensor, which means that you can get a warning if a storm is building up over where you are. You can get a warning before the first lightning flash takes place. So in critical areas like stadiums, where there are a lot of people, it's a really good idea to have both of these sensors. This one will detect lightning coming from reasonably far, and this one will detect a storm building up over your specific location. You don't want your first strike to be the grandstand at a soccer match that's full of people. A very common way of detecting lightning now is through a network of sensors, and these can be regional or national or even global. And they typically, you'll have a few sensors like this. They can be thousands of kilometers apart, actually. These three sensors will be synchronized time-wise, and they will all detect a stroke. and they will detect the stroke at different times. And using vectors, they will be able to determine the location of that stroke. So you always need 2 sensors or more to detect a stroke, to be able to position where that stroke took place. And then another type of sensor we have is a direction sensor. And once again, you can't just have one sensor to determine exactly where a strike has taken place. You need at least 2 sensors, and where the lines of direction cross will be the location of a strike. Typically, in a global network, they'll have 4 or 5 sensors that will detect every strike and be able to fix a location on it. And in South Africa, we have what's called the South African Lightning Detection Network, and it's made up of 25 Vaisala sensors, and they measure the time of various strikes and use that to position the strike. And they claim that they can get that strike to within about 500 meters. Which is really good, and it's right across the country. And that was set up first in about 2005. And we now have an awesome record of lightning and have been able to produce ground flash density maps of lightning occurrence in South Africa. And you can see KZN, half of KZN has some pretty extreme, quite a high lightning flash density. But it's really in Mpumalanga, which is a forestry area up here. And part of the reason is the topography, but also the moist air that comes in over the oceans that allows convective storms to develop and lightning. Just out of interest, this has a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer resolution, which is really fantastic. The information we're getting here is that in Pietermaritzburg, where we are, it's just going from sort of green into yellow. So it's between 5 and 7 ground flashes per kilometer squared per year. Okay, so that's pretty high. And then since about 1995, we've had satellites. Some are geostationary, so some are focused on the USA. Their satellites focused on China that switch over, depending on the season, to cover Australia. Some orbit the Earth. But this was a map produced just after 2010, in fact, in 2014, of the globe and the lightning occurrence in the globe. And you can see, obviously, it's around the equatorial regions where lightning happens mainly. And what really stood out here was that Africa, in the middle of Africa here, actually in the DRC, is a large area with a really high strike rate. In fact, they're showing values of 50, over 70 flashes per kilometer squared per year. But with the development of these networks of sensors across the globe, this was the most recent map we have from 2021. And this shows a little bit of a drop possibly in the DRC. So the DRC were really tough because they had the highest lightning strike rate in the world. And now that's actually changed. And it's now this area in the Caribbean, and Venezuela is considered to have the highest strike rate in the world. There's a lake there and they measure it and it's off the charts. So my first sort of introduction was around some research in the DRC when it was still the highest lightning strike rate in the world. And it was really through some students. Brian Grant was working there, and Sheldon Stratham helped out a lot, as well as Prof. Savage and Prof. Everson as well. And This is a copper mine, and it's owned by an Australian and Chinese company, and they've got a lot of lightning, but they want to try and operate safely. There's the Australian influence, and safety is a big thing, but they still have to make money. And you'll see here that one of the storms we measured lasted 8.5 hours, basically, which means that when the lightning system goes off, everyone who's outside has to come inside, trucks stop moving, and everything comes to a halt. And that obviously just that had a huge cost associated with it. So so we helped them work out how this could be managed. One of the things they did was they put lightning conductors throughout the mine. They made all the buildings lightning safe. They also filled vehicle tires with nitrogen, so vehicles could keep moving, and if the vehicles get struck, the nitrogen tires don't explode as violently as tires filled with oxygen or air, because oxygen explodes, nitrogen doesn't explode. We also found that having a 3-level system with an all clear, a yellow sort of light, and a red light was a little bit too complicated. People, yellow light, caution, beware of lightning, don't change your behavior. What does that actually mean? So we reduced that to a 2 light system with just all clear and red. And this is what a typical storm would look like there. This is 3 hours of storm. The solid line here is the change in electric field measured by the electric field meter. You can see this rapid fluctuation, which would probably have been caused by a ground strike pretty close to the station. And then, it eventually peters out. Generally, it sits at around -90 as the natural sort of condition it should be at. When it gets to 1,500, we issue a red alert warning. So this would have issued a red alert warning, except that there were strikes, okay? About an hour before the electric field got high, there were strikes detected. And the distances we use are 32 kilometers and 16 kilometers for the red alert. Those seem quite strange numbers to use, and it's because they come from miles. So it would be 10 miles would be 16 kilometers, and 20 miles would be 32 kilometers. Okay, but this is the progression of a normal storm, and it's so exciting to see your senses, detecting what is happening out there, in terms of lightning. So yeah, very rewarding. And this brought about the opportunity to work at Swaimane High School, and it really was a team effort. I must just emphasize that. A lot of people here made me look good, it was on the back of the Mgani Resilience Project, managed by Tafadzwa. So many thanks to him. There was assistance from DRAP. South African Weather Services provided us with some of their lightning their lightning data from the source network, and then UKZN ICS helped us with managing our online system. And you can see here, this is the school building. It's a rural school out near Wartburg in KwaZulu-Natal. There's the strike guard sensor. Here's the electric field meter. And here are the warning lights. And here we ran it as a 3-light system. We've zoomed in here. You can see there's actually a little siren there as well that goes off when there's a warning. This is the view from the roof. So you can see it's quite a nice elevated area, visible from quite far around. And the learners walk right past it when they leave school, and right past it when they come to school. So nice and visible to them. This is obviously, if there's a lot of lightning here, this is a vulnerable area. You can see it's on a ridge. there are trees around here, and the kids would be walking out of the gate. And yeah, Maksuda was the PhD student on this project, and I find it a fascinating story because she's actually a hydrologist, and she did agrometrology in second year, and I kept in touch, and she came by and was looking for a PhD project, and there was a great one on water use, which is hydrology. There was money, and I started telling her about this lightning, and she just got so excited I couldn't steer her in any other direction. And she's quite determined once she gets going. And I was nervous because I didn't know that much about lightning at that time. But she's graduated, and yeah, this is one of the papers she published. So hats off to her, and it's so rewarding seeing a student going through something like a PhD, where I provided quite a lot of help at the beginning, and by the time she reached the end, she was writing her own chapters and didn't need me anymore, pretty much. Just some of the results that we got there in terms of the flashes. As you may have guessed, this is time of day, so from about 10 or 11 in the morning you can start getting flashes, but they jump up between 2 and 3, decrease only at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then early hours in the morning is when there's the least lightning around. And we call this the diurnal cycle. So that's a word I always try and teach the students. This was another interesting finding showing what was causing the alarm system to escalate to the next level. So 2 is the yellow, 3 is the red, and then 4 was actually still just red. That was lightning within 8 kilometers, and it's not something that the system shows. It's just something that that we also record. And it was quite interesting to see that to go into a red warning, about half the time it was as a result of strikes, and about half the time it was a result of the electric field being high enough to set off the electric field meter threshold. Which was very interesting, and to me that indicates that it's an area where storms develop, and it's on a ridge, so it's highly likely that storms are developing on this ridge, and to do away with this sensor and just have the strike guard would probably be a mistake at this particular site, because of the reliance of the electric field meter going into a red alert. And then something that generates a lot of discussion, particularly at second year when I discuss it with the students, is some of the beliefs that people have about lightning. It's this powerful thing that comes from the sky. And Seneli Siwe has been, or she's about to finish her MSc on it. And I hope she doesn't mind. In fact, I checked with her that I could share some of the results that she found, speaking to the community about lightning and their beliefs. And some of those that she came up with were ukukipa abafana bezulu, which means taking out sticks. And these sticks have been splashed with herbs mixed in water. And the men are meant to place these sticks on the roof of a house. And the aroma or the smell from these sticks is meant to prevent lightning from striking your house. And there's burning all sorts of herbs as a sort of incense. People believe that it chases lightning away. There's ukukipa amajazi, which is taking out coats of traditional leaders. Traditional healers. Have powers which are transferred to their clothes, and you're able to hang the jacket or the jersey of a traditional healer up on your house, and it would protect your home. People believe in sprinkling holy water around the house. Sometimes the water's got jay's fluid or something like that in it that smells quite strongly. It'll protect your house. People, quite commonly, I know a lot of the students, second year students say, yes, their parents do this and their grandparents do this, cover mirrors or pots or in fact anything shiny when there's a lightning storm. And there's a lot of belief that lightning can be sent by someone. So if you've been a bad person, someone else might send lightning to you. People place tires or just a tire on the roof of their house, and I guess it's the rubber that is what protects your house. Inyoni Zulu is a bird which is it's actually a southern ground hornbill, and it is meant, if you see that bird, that is meant to warn you of lightning or other extreme hazards. Particularly in the DRC, people won't wear red in the wet season because red apparently attracts lightning, or there's a belief that it attracts lightning. And then one Congolese guy that I spoke to, his wife had been struck by lightning. It was a side flash, so she wasn't badly injured, but her hand was burned. It was off a door frame. And he said the first thing that happened was traditional healers came around to the house and with razor blades, and they cut her arm in a number of places, allowing it to bleed. And so there was a belief that you had to allow the person to bleed when they've been struck. The mechanisms of injury are quite interesting when understanding lightning. There's obviously a direct strike, which is very serious. There's a contact voltage, which will conduct through water pipes because of the water or the metal of the pipes or door frames into your body. So it's a good idea when you're in a building not to wash the dishes or bath or shower or even touch window frames or stand next to windows. Even lightning can go through windows. Side flashes occur when a tall object is struck, and when it reaches your height, the resistance through the air to you and down through you is less than the resistance through the tree, and you have a side flash into your body and into the ground. There's a ground current in which lightning can strike. It could be directly the ground or a tree, and it then dissipates in a circle away from the strike, and it passes up one leg through an animal and down the other leg. It can happen when you're sitting in a cave, if the ground is struck near you. It can happen walking on the road. And then the fifth and final way people get injured is through an upward streamer. So that's if you're one of the tall objects and you're starting to become positively charged, people often say they can feel the hairs on their neck starting to sort of stand up, and that's a warning sign that you're in trouble. And people can actually get injured because even if the lightning, there are a number of streamers on the surface, and the leader chooses one. But the increase in positive voltage and then the sudden decrease is enough to injure you, even if you're not directly struck. And you can see from this table, in terms of lightning fatalities, the most common one is the ground current. So where people are not struck directly, but it's the charge traveling, dissipating through the ground, travels up into your body and down again. The key is that you have to have 2 points of contact with the ground for that to happen. So I hope it's obvious to you that you should be standing on one leg if you're near a tree in a lightning storm, or hopping or something like that. Side flashes 20 to 30% of the time. Then contact, so that's like on water pipes. You're touching water pipes when something nearby is struck and the charge is conducted into the house. Upward leaders, direct strikes, very low. And then blunt trauma is injury because of branches that may have been blown off a tree, or tiles or metal flung in a lightning strike. And I just thought, because of the high prevalence of the ground current, it'd be interesting to take a look at it. What this shows is at the point at which the strike enters the ground, the voltage is highest, and then it drops quite rapidly and dissipates, okay, to a distance away from the strike. From the literature, it sounds like it's about 30 meters, depending on the ground. And what happens here is that because the legs of this cow are different distances away from the point of the strike, there is a step voltage, so a difference in the voltage between these feet and these feet. And the result is that there is a flow of current through this animal. There's a man standing here, his feet are closer together. So the step voltage is less for the man than it is for the cow. Okay, so stand with your feet very close together. Okay, if you think you might get a ground current, or even better, stand on one leg. Just don't fall over, because if you're lying down, the chances are you're as long as a cow, and then the step voltage is even higher. It takes a cool head in a thunderstorm. Yeah? In terms of locations, people get injured through ground currents. 40% in open fields, still under trees, and we really must know that we mustn't go under trees in a lightning storm. It feels safer and you're out of the rain, but it's the wrong place to go. People in boats or swimming, golf's a dangerous sport. People in heavy machinery, and then talking on a landline telephone is a big no-no. This, I don't know why there are more men that are struck than females. Maybe some of the men can help me out. It could be because we aren't as intelligent as the females and we stand under trees, or we don't notice the lightning coming. And then the encouraging thing is that 9 out of 10 people actually survive a lightning event, a lightning injury. Unfortunately, a lot of those people are permanently affected, and it's typically the neural system that is affected. So there'll be paralysis and brain problems. So some general advice, okay, on lightning: move into a solid structure, okay, and I say grounded here. So a structure that has a foundation with metal in it, walls with pipes in it. That kind of structure will conduct lightning into the ground. Okay, so that's the type of structure you want to be in. When inside, stay away from pipes, windows, water, and landline phones. Lightning goes through windows, by the way. The window's not going to stop lightning. It's come all the way from the clouds. It's not going to stop at a piece of glass. Generally, we have this reaction that we want to unplug devices, which is very wise, because electrical surges would damage TVs and fridges, all sorts of things. But once the storm starts, it's too late. You don't want to be with your hand on that plug when the electrical surge comes through, because you'll obviously get injured. The car is a safe place to be. Okay, it's actually it's a Faraday cage, and the metal conducts the lightning around you and straight through the tires into the ground. Okay, some people believe that it's the rubber of the tires that make you safe in the vehicle. It's definitely not. As I said, the lightnings come all the way kilometers through the atmosphere from the cloud. It's going to go straight through a little piece of rubber. So it's actually the fact that it's a metal body. And then don't touch the metal, okay? You don't want to risk becoming part of the conducting body there. If you are out and about, move to low ground, away from trees, away from fences. A lot of animals in storms, they sort of back up against a fence, and fences conduct charge. And a lot of vets, where lightning is bad, will encourage farmers every sort of 50 or 100 meters to place a metal pole or dropper to earth the fence. So a lot of fences have wooden posts. Occasionally it's good to have a metal one. Okay, stay away from power lines. Don't lie on the ground. You feel like you want to get as low as possible. It's not wise. It's just, it really increases the step voltage across your body potentially. Okay. And then, yes, there is a huge amount of energy in lightning, and energy is something that we in South Africa are particularly short of at the moment, and hence all the load shedding. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could store some of the energy from this lightning? The problem is we don't know where it's going to happen. It's not regular in where it happens. Some tall objects, mountains, buildings will get repeatedly struck. But the other problem is that there's just so much energy that comes in, and we don't have a way of storing that. Okay, energy that we receive so quickly. If you do find a way to harness power from lightning, please give me a call. Don't tell anyone else, and well, maybe we can make some money. Right, so the international rule generally for lightning is when it roars. So that's when the thunder roars. And this is a slogan that they've used in the States to try and reduce fatalities. When it roars, go indoors. Okay, when it roars, go indoors. And all sorts of businesses and mines use this slogan with their employees. The problem is, in Africa, we have a huge population that lives in rural areas in buildings that are not lightning safe, like this one, for example. It's got dried out wood with dried out mud, and there's nothing to conduct the lightning into the ground. So if you've got people in this building and the roof gets struck, it's raining and it's very wet, the lightning strikes the roof, it is going to jump onto the people inside and through into the ground. And it's really, really sad to see. Every year we have stories in in our papers about groups of people, families that are killed in structures like this in rural areas. So in terms of the future, what do we take away from this? Well, unfortunately, there's going to be more lightning. Climate change means that, well, one of the symptoms that we always talk about is an increase in temperature. Yes, but that's as a result of more energy in our atmosphere. And more energy means more storms and more lightning. Okay, and extreme events is one of the characteristics that we expect with climate change. There are warning systems, and we need to implement them. South African Weather Services has got a network of sensors, and they currently provide warnings for our Tambo, but it would be possible to make more use of this, I believe. I think we really need to protect certain public buildings and spaces where there are going to be a lot of people. We need to make sure that those buildings are protected from lightning, and animals. So where we have a lot of animals congregating, generally under trees or something like that in storms, we need to think about ways in which we can put up lightning conductors to protect them. And then something that I found very interesting is that across Africa, we have very bad records of lightning casualties. And I've tried to get information on this, and a lot of the time it's just not recorded. People are aware of people getting injured, but it's not recorded, and we're often guessing at the data. And then we really need to assess high-risk areas in the rural parts of our country where there are a lot of people living. I think we're going to have to put up lightning conductors, or at least make some of the structures safe. And there's a fantastic organization called ACLNet, and it stands for African Center for Lightning and Electromagnetics Network. And it was developed after a Ugandan school was struck, and a number of the learners lost their lives, and many were had to go to hospital. And it was started by Miriam Cooper, and they have now found sponsorship to make, it's about 8 schools lightning safe now, and they're doing all sorts of teaching and training across Africa. And yeah, it's really worth supporting if you can. It's a great initiative. Okay, and that is the end of my message. And I say, lightning, stay positive, but not too positive, because you don't want to be mistaken for a streamer and get hit by a negative leader.
All right, thank you so much, Alistair, for this electrifying content and talk. And I saw from the chat, it's just like, questions and questions over questions, and definitely we're going to stay positive. There are a couple of questions, some actually related to, beliefs and things like this. And there's a question from Sidwell. Sidwell, you want to ask a question yourself?
Yes, yeah, I think Alistair managed to partially touch on some of the issues that relate to the question, really, but it would have been best to give him an opportunity to kind of respond to the question, to say whether or not there was at some stage some scientific activities that were meant to actually prove or disprove the belief that a human being can in fact create lightning. Thanks.
Okay. And I think you already basically touched on a lot of questions in here. So Derek was actually asking, why females have better surviving chances during lightning storms than males. Sally, or you also have a question? You want to unmute yourself?
No, I just wanted some practical advice from Alistair. If you're walking in the Berg and you get hit by a storm, what must you do?
Yeah, Sally, as soon as you can, get to low-lying ground. And the chances are that it'll strike the ridges first. So just make haste and get down into the valleys. Don't go and stand in the river, but you're down in the valleys. And then not around tall trees or anything like that.
So don't stop still and huddle down, rather keep moving.
Yeah, get to low ground.
There's apparently a pose that you invented, the Alistair crouch. Or the Clulow crouch.
yeah, that was in my early days. I have since discovered it might not be quite as effective as I thought it was.
Okay, so we don't ask for a demonstration.
No.
Then Mutulisi, you have a very technical question. You want to ask the question yourself?
Thank you, Tanya. Thanks, Alistair. It's a very helpful presentation. It really indicates how nature can be also a danger or a threat to our survival, really, and we have limited control over it. But I wanted to ask you, from an electricity point of view, I just wanted to know the ranges of voltages involved and the currents involved. For example, when you have your positive charges on the clouds, and you have got the negative charges or positive charges on the ground, and then there's a voltage difference. About how many volts could that be? A range of voltage. I want to compare it with the voltages that we work with. For example, the voltages that we have in our domestic system of 240, 230 volts. How does that compare? and also the ampage, the current that can run through me when I'm being struck by the lightning. What sort of a magnitude of current can that be? The domestic stove is 30 amps and the other gadgets is smaller ampages. What sort of current would cause an injury? So what is the magnitude of those in ampage?
Yeah, that's actually a very good technical question. Probably best suited to electronic engineer. But it's hundreds of thousands of volts, Mutulisi. The voltage is important, but it's actually it's the amperage that does the damage to you, and it obviously varies a lot. You know, I've actually been struck twice. I've had 2 shocks from lightning. The one was opening a gate connected to a wire fence, and somewhere there was a strike, and there was just a big flash. I don't know where it hit, and I got struck through the fence. So that was probably quite a small voltage and low amperage that passed through me. I don't actually know what the amperage is that comes out of a strike, but I would think it's thousands of amps, you know, a direct strike. It's interesting. Yeah, sorry, I'll stop there.
Okay, maybe Dakalo, he's a PhD student and he's working on lightnings and he might have the answer, and he was also got a question. Dakalo, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Dakalo?
Hello,
Sorry,
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, so I was asking, which method do you use to detect the lightning position, and what's the resolution of the system?
There's a really good app you can get on your phone. It's free. It is called, excuse me a moment. It has a resolution of about 500 meters, and it's called Weather Bug. And it uses a network of sensors across Africa and Europe. And I've sat and I've used it, you know, during a storm, and I'll see a flash and I'll estimate how far away it is using the counting of seconds, and the position on the map will be perfect. And the claim is sort of 500 meters to a kilometer accuracy. And they're really exciting products coming out, like there's a new satellite being launched next year from Europe, and it will cover Europe and Africa, the entire continent, and it's going to be able to provide real-time warnings of lightning. So yeah, for position, I use WeatherBug.
Okay, thanks.
So
does it answer your question, Dakalo?
Yes, but I still have another question.
Okay, all right, keep it short.
Okay, so how does the system, your system differs from source one? Because I think the source, they also have like an accuracy of, in terms of position, of about 500 meters.
Yeah. So the systems we used in the DRC and at Swayamane High School, they don't try and locate where the strike is happening. It just measures how far away the strike is. And when it comes to within 32 kilometers, it's a yellow caution. When there's lightning within 16 kilometers, it's a red alert. So it's a single sensor. The source system is a network of 25 sensors spread around the country. And it's able to position the location of strikes, you know, using vector analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right. And then Meryl has a very cunning question. Meryl, you want to ask your question yourself?
It's actually not Meryl, it's Mike Alistair.
Okay, so disguised Meryl.
I was just asking two questions and one comment. What happens to a tree when it's struck by lightning? What are the benefits of lightning? And the men incidents versus women incidents may be because there's more men outdoors than women, but that's obviously changing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm very glad someone, if I can just answer the benefits, I'm very glad someone asked about that, because there's, everything on this planet seems to be there for a reason. And, even mosquitoes, they feed animals. And, you think, why would there be mosquitoes? And, if you just think of the negative side of lightning, you wonder why it might occur. Lightning is important in fixing nitrogen into our soils for vegetation. Nitrogen is quite, N2 is quite inert, and to get it into a form where it can be used by plants is quite difficult, and it doesn't happen a lot. And there are estimates of tons and tons of nitrogen being made available to plants through lightning every day. And then the other thing is lightning starts fires. And many vegetation types like grasslands naturally need fire to maintain them in good condition, to be able to sustain wildlife and animals, etc. So prior to people being around and setting fire, naturally lightning would have started these fires. It also makes people think about how vulnerable they are, which is maybe a good idea. Occasionally, we think technology is going to protect us from everything. The other question, Mike, was about the tree and what happens. And a tree pretty much explodes because heat is generated, and the sap and water, I would say, vaporizes, and it ruptures all the cells of the tree. And a tree doesn't usually look very well after it's been struck by lightning. Thanks for the suggestion on the men versus women.
Sounds like a very good answer. Tim Tyrrell has a question about ball lightning. Tim, you want to unmute yourself? Tim? Otherwise, I can ask the question. Okay, so his question is, do you have any knowledge of what is known as ball lightning? And I know that, there are, these balls of whatever floating around.
Yeah, our very own Craig Morris from Grassland Science has given me a first-hand account of a story he heard from someone who saw this ball of lightning traveling down Carbis Road. And I don't think they're very common. I haven't been able to find any photos of them that I've decided were real, but it apparently does happen. And they say it's a plasma that starts rolling, and it can travel some distances. I've never seen one. But if you look it up, it exists. And Craig Morris is absolutely correct.
Okay, so the last two questions. I know that Mutuluzi has got his hands up, and then Sifo, and then unfortunately we are running out of time. But before we're gonna say goodbye, I'll just want to announce next month's talk. Mutuluzi?
I thought that it offers an opportunity as an area of research that disparity or the disproportionality that we have is huge. It's quite striking. Some 84%, was it 84 to 16 or 82 to 18 that of men being more struck by lightning than women. And I think there are quite a number of factors to this. One of them being what Mike Savage has suggested. And I was thinking of two, maybe you can evaluate them. I'm not sexist, but I just want to, these are quite funny, but they could be also contributors. If you talked about the ground, what did you call it, ground lightning, where it goes along the ground, and then it's dissipating like that. And you said when the limbs are far apart, then the voltage difference is larger, and therefore we are likely to be struck. When you look at our habits between the two gender, men tend to stand, for example, with their legs more astride than women. Even in terms of hands, you find women would normally maybe do this when they're standing, and men would want to stand like that. And that could be a huge factor.
Yeah.
The other, which I also think is a huge factor, I don't want to be sexist, just suggestions from a scientific reason point of view.
I would otherwise object to it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The proportion, if you look at in terms of proportions, men tend to be taller than women. So if men stand and a woman is standing and there's a risk of lightning, and if the man is likely to be the tallest object, maybe standing next to some other structure like a tree, but a woman would be maybe a shorter object, and therefore the man becomes a target. Those are suggestions which may be tested.
We'll have to test it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment. Sifo, you have the last question. Keep it short, please.
Yes, good day all. I just want to ask regarding the advice. There was some advice that was shared, mostly for the schools that are built or maybe that are located next to the rivers or maybe dams. What advice in terms of behavior, mainly for the kids, if maybe a lightning or a storm erupts? And the other question is that although I may not attach numbers to it, but I've realized that, or maybe from people's discussions, that alarming system also in the household also draws lightning. I just want to know what could be the cause of that. Thanks.
Thanks, Sipho. Schools, I would say our rural schools need lightning protection. It's really interesting how they do it. It's called a rolling sphere model. And they roll this big sphere with a radius of about 20 meters. They roll it over the buildings in all sorts of directions. And they position lightning conductors on the roofs of the buildings so that as this ball rolls over the building, there's nowhere that the ball touches the roof. And that's how they determine where to put conductors. And schools need, it's called air termination, you know, the point at the top, and they need those to be wired down the side of the building into a cable that makes good contact with the ground all around the edge of the building. That's what our rural schools need, together with the knowledge that when they hear thunder, they need to remain in the building and not try and walk home, at that point. So that's what I would recommend for our rural schools. And then in terms of a lightning warning system at home, I would say that probably the most affordable would be, WeatherBug is free, and it can actually alert you with messages, to lightning. But otherwise, take a lot, and a handheld lightning detector. They do cost a bit, but they do work.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending this session here, and don't miss out on next month's public lecture. Drug discovery, finding new drugs that heal, a look at natural product and synthetic organic chemistry drugs, research being undertaken at UKZN to combat the killer disease on our time. And guest speaker will be Professor Neil Carbonelli, who is an organic chemist and also our current Dean of Research at the College of Agriculture, Engineering and Science. But before we all depart, I would like you to please unmute and give Alistair a very, very big round of applause. Well done, Alistair. Great, great, great job. Well done.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Well done.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Abunga from Cape Town.
Well done, well done.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we cannot unfortunately answer all the questions, but you can also probably contact Alistair and ask him directly, send him an email if you want an answer. And this was it for tonight. Also a big thanks to Sally, who's quietly working in the background, changing slides and so on. And good night, everybody, and happy load shedding. And I hope to see everybody back next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.